Hey everyone, Mr. Friesa here. Sorry I'm not in school today. Um, I've got a sick child, and I myself aren't exactly up to snuff. But nevertheless, we got a lot of stuff to do this week, and you should have yourself some headphones and as well as your Chromebook, so we should easily be able to get through this. Now, stop this as much as you need to stop it. But I want you to do is basically write down these notes, and then you're going to answer some questions, and then do an activity at the end of all this. So today we're going to focus specifically on um, how we measure intelligence. So the last couple classes we spent the time learning about theories of intelligence. So you look at this picture right here, it's basically your standard view of what school is like, and it goes all this one goes all the way back to the day, of course. One of the things it always measures with intelligence is the IQ, and the first page is kind of dispelling some myths. So this is a person that asked Marilyn, and these are both kind of spoofs. You got the previous president George W. Bush. It's at an IQ estimated at 91, but in actuality, both of them are actually hoaxes. These numbers get thrown around a lot, and adults are very difficult to measure IQ. Uh, and then you see these estimates for presidents. You see a lot of these on the internet. Again, these are estimates because you really can't exactly get a true measurement for an adult, which we'll explain in a few seconds. So there's two different types of intelligence tests. There's the Stanford-Binet scales, and then there's also the Wechsler scales. If you remember, there was a guy named Alfred Binet, and we're going to revisit him right now. If we go back to the old Parisian or French public school district, he was the one that did the first modern intelligence test. Um, Basically wanted to measure school knowledge, and what he did, what came of this is this thing that's called the mental age, and it shows the intellectual level at which a child is functioning. So what they did was they measured a whole bunch of kids at relative ages, and they got like a kind of like a standard of each of the each age level. So the average 6-year-old should be yielding a mental age of 6. So the little Brian is 6. He has a mental age of 6. If he's functioning at a normal intellectual level, okay, that should be normal, right? So if he's a mental age of 6 and also chronological age of 6. All right. So now here's where his work started paying off. Little Anthony is 8 and he's got a mental age of 10. Is he functioning at a normal intellectual level? The answer to that is no. He's actually functioning higher. He's actually got a higher IQ than he's got an IQ of a 10-year-old, even though he's 8. So this kind of yields the first intelligence quotient. And this is the relation between a child's mental age and their chronological age. So we kind of saw this. It's the mental age divided by chronological age, and you multiply that by 100. So the IQ score is your relative standing within a population of your age. So if you're looking over here, like you have all these different types of reasoning and tests. Verbal reasoning, you got like your vocabulary comprehension, quantitative reasoning, you got your quantitative test, number series, abstract visual reasoning, and also your short-term memory. So these are all types of questions you might see on your average IQ test. So little Jose is 10. He's got a mental age of 12. He's functioning at normal level. What is his IQ? So he's actually functioning above it. All right, and if you do that, the processing, his IQ is 120. It's 1.2 times 100. Okay, because of the way that the calculation goes. Excuse me. Okay, so the Stanford Binet scales, okay, are very, very expensive, and they're very, very, they're also very, very guarded. So what I mean by that is that you're not just going to be able to go on the internet and find these scales. You have to actually have a license to administer it. You have to be able to have a psychologist usually give it and then render the results and all that stuff. So our psychologist at the school has these. However, they would not be able to come in and show you during class because it would ruin their validity. So the basic is that 2 years, children know basic vocab words. So they ask, show me your eyes. They point to proper parts on a doll, things like that. Children can match up model made up of 4 blocks. So these are all things that they're asked to do on this test. An adult know word meanings and conceptual thinking by explaining the differences between word pairs, such as sickness and misery, house and home, and integrity and prestige. So again, a lot of very, very vocabulary dependent. They also might be asked to show spatial skills. If a car turned to the right to the head north, what direction was it heading before it turned? So, because it was so heavily dependent on language, and they were having people that were taking these tests that maybe weren't able to speak the language, David Weschler created this verbal and performance skills test that had subtests in it to help measure people's IQ. So basically, they were coming up with 3 scores. There was the verbal performance and also the combination of the two. This is the most used test today. And what David Weschler accomplished is he got rid of the language gap. And so, like for example, performance skills test examples might be like a picture completion. What is missing from this picture? Obviously, the one of the hands of the timepiece. Put this puzzle and make that picture. So take all these little pieces right here and make that. Put these things in order. What would happen first, what would happen second, third, fourth, so on and so forth. So you don't need to speak English in order to do that. You just need to be able to kind of recognize the situation. So what's the difference between the Stanford-Binet and Weschler test? Well, the big thing is that the Stanford-Binet, while it was valuable and it measured out IQ, it only really measures verbal things. It does have some spatial reasoning, but it's really a big verbal. And then also the Weschler test measures both the verbal and also the nonverbal. All right. Okay, so we're going to take a break for a second and let you guys get caught up and then look for part 2.